Hello everyone. In this video we want to continue talking about the Gregor Mendel discover about heredity. Just to remind you, last time we said that for Mendel he studied like 7 different characteristics where these plant height, flowers and pod position, seed shape, seed color, pod shape, pod color and flower color. And each characteristic had 2 different forms. These different forms are called traits. Again, each one has 2 different forms. Each one is called trait. You have to know the definition of trait, which is very important. Okay. Now, Mendel also studied each characteristic separately. We said when if you remember, he studied first at the beginning. He put the yellow, for example, for the plants are producing yellow seed, he left them to make self-pollination till he got true breeding plants, and for the same things for the green plants. Actually, for Mendel, he studied each characteristic separately, always starting with the plants that were true breeding. Okay, for true breeding plants, what is the true breeding plant? Always produce, as we mentioned last time, always produce offspring with the same trait if allowed to self-pollinate naturally. Okay, yani for these here in a plant, a yellow seed plant, if I allow them to only make self-pollination naturally and keep them alone separately, they will give only yellow, nothing else. Okay. Let's continue here. After this, Mendel crossed plants. He crossed plants, and he made the fertilization happen between green and and yellow. He crossed plants that were true breeding for producing yellow. They should be true breeding, and they only producing yellow. Okay, and with the plants where they are producing only what? A green. All of the plants from the first generation, if you remember, we said all plants with the first generation produced the green seed pods, or the let's say about this is about pods, but the last time I explained with you about the seeds only. Okay, Mendel called the green seed pod the dominant because all of them they are produced. The first generation, all of them are green, and yellow disappeared. He called the green what? The dominant trait, and for the yellow seed pod, he recessive trait. Okay, because it disappeared in the first generation. Next, Mendel let the first generation plant self-pollination. For the if you remember when we said for the next generation, let's go back. For the first generation, he left them to make self-pollination. Okay, and he found the yellow color start to appear again. Okay, so next Mendel let the first generation plants self-pollinate out of the generation that resulted, called the second generation. About 3/4 had green seed pod and 1/4 had yellow pod. Look at this. The recessive trait had seemed to disappear in the first generation, but it reappeared in the second generation, if you remember. Okay, so Mendel hypothesized that each plant must have 2 heritable factors. Now we want to focus on this in today's lesson. Okay, for each trait, one from each parent. Some traits, such as yellow color, could only be observed if a plant had 2 of the same factor. So because it's recessive, it should contain the same factor. Now we will explain it in more details to make it easier for you to understand it. A plant with 2 different factors would show the dominant factor. This one is very important to know it. Okay, but be able to pass on both factors to its offspring. Let's now focus how are traits inherited. We're talking about factors. What are these factors from the parents and from the mom and from the dad? Okay, what are these? Just to remind you, You remember this karyotype that we were talking about the homologous chromosomes, and these homologous chromosomes, each pair of chromosomes, they are having the same chromosomes. They are one from the mom and the other one from the dad. These are the factors Mendel was talking about, because you took one from the mom and the one from the dad. And actually, let's talk about this in more details. This is from mom. This is a chromosome, let's say, from the mom, okay? And this one, for example, from dad. So let's continue for this one. Let's go back to this one, sorry. One of these chromosomes from your mom, the other one from your dad, right? And you have to put in your mind the whole chromosome. I'm talking about this thread-like structure, this one here, this one, all of it, okay? If you take a part of it, this part of it, and you take it from the other one, this one here, the part of it, this segment of DNA, it has a name. The name of it is gene. Again, the segment of DNA, it's a gene, and each segment is responsible about one trait that you have. For example, this is for eyes, this is for the ears, this is for blood, okay? So each one of them is responsible about what? About a trait. So what is the gene? Let's talk about the meaning of the gene. The gene are genes are segments of DNA. يعني here, if I want to take from the karyotype only one of them, you can see like colors, like these colors, okay? Each segment, and for this thread, this one here from mom and this one from dad, is a gene. This orange here is a gene. This yellow here is a gene. And here for this chromosome, this red is gene, yellow is gene, orange is gene. The same thing here, this one is gene, and this one is gene, this one is gene. What about these genes? They give instructions for producing a certain characteristic. Is it clear now what is the meaning of the gene? Okay, let's continue. This is the gene that you understand now, the meaning of the gene. The offspring, yani for example, for you as an offspring, has two versions of the same gene for every characteristic, one from each parent. Let's go back to this one. Yani for example, imagine this orange one, okay, one from mom and the other one from dad, right? This I'll put M from mom and this one from dad. Okay, and these chromosomes, all of it chromosomes, they are homologous chromosomes, right? For each gene, this gene, I'll call it gene A, and this gene is A also, okay, is responsible about your size, ear size. For example, these two, because they are two, you're talking here about two version of the same gene, both of them, they are responsible about the size of the ear, but one from the dad and the other one from the mom. Now, look at this term, new definition now. We have something is called alleles. What are alleles? They are different versions of a gene, are known as genes, alleles. If I want to talk about this one here, this blue, it's a DNA, right? From your mom. And this one here is a DNA gene from your dad, okay? Both of them, they are responsible about a presence of dimple, for example. Okay, so these genes, both of them, they are different versions, one from mom, one from dad. These two together, they are alleles. Got it now? Because one from the mom and the other from the dad. Okay, is it clear now? So let's continue now. Dominant alleles are shown with capital letter, and recessive alleles are shown with lowercase version of the same letter. What does that mean? Let's understand this. Imagine this orange, I said, this segment here, which is a gene, right, from your mom, and this segment here is a gene from your dad, right? And your mom ears, it had like big ears. I'm going to represent big ears with a B, capital B. Capital B, which means this characteristic is dominant. What does dominant mean? Yani, this characteristic will appear, okay, in the presence of recessive, and your dad's ears are small. Let's say small b, okay, and this one represent what? Recessive. Now, what is your ears now? They are big or small? This one b, because small b, here recessive. Let's say this one is recessive, this one is small ear, and this is recessive, as you see, because it's small. And here for the B from your mom, it's what? It's big here, for big ear. Which one here is for your ears? If you have these genes from your mom and your dad, you have these alleles now. I'm going to use now alleles because I'm talking about different factors, one from mom and one from dad. Okay, both of them together, the different versions. Hala, for these two now, because you have one of them dominant and the other one is recessive, for sure your ears will be big. The dominant trait will appear. How to make the recessive trait to appear? If you receive from your mom the gene that is make what? Recessive also from your mom, okay? This one is recessive also B, imagine. So here it will be small ears. What about if you receive from your dad also BB? Okay, one from mom and one from dad, this one is dominant. So to make it easier for you, capital letter represent what? It represent dominant. So if you receive from your mom B and from your dad B, what is the characteristic that you will have? This one is gonna be dominant. Okay, if you receive from your mom B capital and from your dad let's say the recessive one, so it's gonna be what? It's gonna be also dominant, because the presence of the one gene or one allele from the dominant, it's enough to make this characteristic to appear. Okay, if you receive from your mom B, small b, and from your dad small capital B, which means it's gonna be also dominant. It will be big. Okay, what is the characteristic? If you receive from your mom the small b and from your dad small b, so this one is recessive. So to make recessive characteristic appear, these two should be recessive allele from both from the mom and from the dad. Okay, so let's continue now. This is about the letters. Dominant alleles are shown with capital letter and recessive alleles are shown with lowercase version of the same letter. Okay, now an organism with one dominant and one recessive, as we mentioned, one dominant and one recessive allele for gene is heterozygous. This one heterozygous for that gene. What does that mean? Which one of these is heterozygous? This one heterozygous, it has dominant and it has recessive, and this one it has dominant and it has recessive, so this one is heterozygous. Okay, so let's go back. An organism with two of the same allele, same now allele for a gene is homozygous for that gene, which means like this one, this is the homo and this one is homo. You understand now the difference between these? You have to know from this lesson the meaning of the gene, the meaning of alleles, when the recessive appear, when the dominant appear, what does homozygous, what does heterozygous, and you have to understand these terms are very important. If you still have a question about them, you can send me your questions. Thank you for listening.